Jeremy, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay.
Yep, sounds
I
good.
I don't think he can see us, but that's fine, right?
Yeah, no, I can't see you, but I can hear you.
Okay.
That should be fine.
Jeremy, I believe you have a copy of the union exhibits. Is that right?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Can you open up your PDF document and there it should be bookmarked? And can you go to Union Exhibit 7?
I can do that right now.
Let me know when you're there.
I should be on 7 right now.
Okay. Do you see a calendar?
No, hold on, let me scroll down a little bit more. 4. Yes, I'm on it.
Okay. Do you recognize this document?
Yes, I do.
Okay. What is this?
This is our call schedule, the days that we were on call.
And can you remind us how this call schedule came into existence?
Well, for the first 2 years, we weren't on call, and we came to the point where we want to know when we're on call and when we're not. So we thought and had Ryan and Matt Watson had came up with this call schedule. So we can actually know when we're on and when we're off, because the first 2 years, we didn't know anything. We
You
were
said,
just on call the whole time.
okay, so for the first 2 years, you said that you were on call for the whole time. Is that what you said?
Yes,
Okay, can you elaborate on when you say you're on call all of the time? What does that mean?
we have to, we had to answer our phones all the time, but in our situation, if we needed vacation or to take a day off, we would have to get it approved, or somebody would have to cover. And we would have to let them know that, hey, we're not gonna be here this day, to make sure that somebody was gonna cover.
So for how many years of your employment with the county's fire department did this schedule exist?
The schedule started at the end of 2021. I said a later date last night. I was confused. I'm sorry. But the schedule started at 2021 at the beginning of the 2021 to 2022.
And who created the schedule?
Uh,
In terms of who produced it when it came out?
Ryan produced it.
And how far in advance was this schedule created?
They did it by
Vague
year.
and ambiguous.
Sustained.
They did it a year in advance.
Hold on, Jeremy.
Okay.
There was an objection and it was sustained, so there's not a question.
Okay.
How often was this schedule published
Published as in
to you and everyone else in the shop?
once a year they redid it.
Okay, can you flip through a few pages on Union Exhibit 7 and let me know when you're done?
I'm all the way into May now. Do you want me to keep going?
No, just let me know when you're done looking at Union Exhibit 7.
Okay. I'm done looking at it.
Okay, can you generally describe to us how often you appear on this schedule every month?
Every other 7 days. Other than Ryan was on about, I think he was on a Saturday and Sunday. He was on a weekend every 5 weeks.
Does this calendar reflect any days that you were on vacation or took time off?
On this one, no.
So was this calendar updated after it was published one time per year?
Every year.
Okay, can you look at any month in the notes box? It says R Noel will cover for mechanic on approved time off. Do you see that?
Yep, I'm looking right at it.
Okay, what does that mean?
That if we needed a day off, or we would have to get it approved by him. If not, then we would still have to cover if he was busy.
Were there ever instances where Ryan Noel covered when you were not on vacation or taking time off?
Did he ever cover when I was on vacation?
When you were not on vacation or not taking time off?
Oh, no. Only on the days that he is marked on the calendar.
If you were ever on calendar for a certain day, but you did not respond to a call that you received after hours, was there someone else who was available to respond?
Uh, not not all the time. Sometimes there would be. It depends on who they call, because they would call me, or first they would call Ryan, and then they would call me if I'm on schedule, and then that stopped after a while, about a year. And then it was usually they would call me, and if I didn't answer, they would call Roy. But I can't recall any incidences that when they called me, I didn't answer my phone if I was on the schedule.
Okay, last night you were testifying regarding a conversation that you had with Justin McComb sometime in 2023 where he brought up the service trucks. Do you recall that testimony?
Yes, I do.
Can you remind us what Justin McComb told you during that meeting regarding the service trucks and standby pay?
Objection asked and answered.
Sustained.
So yesterday you testified that Justin McComb told you if you took the trucks home, you would not get standby pay. Do you recall that testimony?
No, he never told us if we take the trucks home, we won't get standby pay.
Okay, what did he tell you about the trucks and standby pay?
The trucks will stay at the shop. We're no longer allowed to take them home, and there's no standby pay.
And when was that conversation approximately?
That was in 2023, around June, like the beginning of June.
Have you ever seen the SEIU 521 contract with the County of Madera?
I have.
Are you familiar with the standby pay provision in that contract?
I am. Once we went to the union, yes. when we started looking into it.
So when was the first time that you recall looking at the contract and the standby pay provision?
When we were trying to get a schedule, which that was beginning of 21.
And why hadn't you looked at the contract language before that date?
Retaliation.
Retaliation from who exactly?
From Matt Watson and threatening our jobs, and yeah, it's a long list, long line. It's been a long road.
And when did you first make the union aware about your concerns regarding standby pay?
It was March of 23 is when we took them to HR.
I have no further questions. It's on
Okay.
direct exam.
Cross-exam.
Yes, thank you. Good evening, Jeremy. My name is James McCann. I'm the attorney representing the County of Madera in this matter. I have some questions for you in response to your examination on direct. Just wanted to clarify. So you stated on direct that you started looking at the MOU's standby provision in 2021. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And why did you start looking at it at that time?
From my understanding, I started looking into them because something wasn't right here. Because I've worked jobs before where I had standby, but it was never like this. I've never dealt with a situation like this before.
Okay.
So I started looking into them because I knew something wasn't right here. I was just doing what I was told.
Okay.
And it
And
comes,
so you knew, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
oh no, go ahead.
And so you knew about, you knew that you had concerns about whether you should be paid standby or not in 2021. Isn't that right?
I did, yes.
Okay, thank you. And you testified on direct that you advised the union or notified the union of your concerns about the standby pay in March of 2023. Isn't that correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. On direct, you were testifying regarding instances where you had, or you were asked whether you recalled any instances where you did not pick up the phone when you received an after hours call. Do you recall that?
Yeah,
Isn't it true that you previously testified that when you missed calls, you were treated like a kid?
I was.
So how did you not miss calls, but then you were treated like a kid when you missed calls?
Objection. This question is misstating the witness's testimony. When he was treated like a kid, he did not miss a call. So you should clarify that, or he should ask a new question.
Well, actually, sorry.
I want to say, can you restate the question?
Sure. So when was the instance where you were treated like a kid as you testified?
As when I missed a call or when I didn't miss a call?
Well, you testified that you never missed a call. So you tell me.
I never missed a call when I was on call. The call that I did miss, I wasn't on call. And
Okay.
I got chewed out for it. I can I can go further into that.
Okay, was that before the creation of the first to call calendar?
And no, it was not. The calendar was out.
Okay. So you're stating that there was a time when you were not on the calendar and you were called and you missed the call and you got chewed out.
I did.
Okay. You testified that you are familiar with the standby provision of the MOU, isn't that right?
Correct.
Can you tell me what the MOU says about what standby is?
Objection. The document speaks for itself. If you want to know what the MOU says, you can look at the MOU.
Are you asking, does he understand what the MOU says?
Sure, we can make it that.
Can you phrase it that way?
Okay, what is your understanding of what the MOU says?
The MOU says that fire master mechanics are allowed to park their vehicles in their driveway after hours. And if they are asked by a superior, that they will be compensated at the rate of $4 an hour standby
Okay,
after hours.
okay, and you have access to the union's exhibits, isn't that right?
I do.
Okay, can you turn to Union Exhibit 8?
All the ones I have are numbers. They're not letters. Or they're letters, not numbers. So
Okay. Well, what I'm asking you to refer to is the MOU itself.
.60.731.
I'm sorry, I just asked you to take a look at the MOU. I'm not sure what you're speaking to at this point. If you could just turn to the MOU, and I'm not asking you to take a look at it yet.
May I interrupt to possibly
I'm
help?
trying to find it.
You have a page numbers.
That's all I'm
Not,
asking.
not yet.
All right, I'm on it.
Okay, thank you. Can you tell us where in the memorandum of understanding standby is defined as where a fire master mechanic is permitted to park their county vehicle at home? Take your time.
And I would just object again that the document speaks for itself. We don't need this witness to tell us what is in the contract and what is not in the contract. Nor do we need him to tell us what his understanding of the contract is either, because that has no bearing on what the contract says or what it means. And so this entire line of questioning is irrelevant.
I'm going to sustain that in light that
If I might, the purpose of this is to test the credibility of the witness. The witness just testified that he knew what standby was and how the MOU defines standby. And I would just put out there as a reminder that this individual is one of the grievance. He is alleging through the grievance itself that his rights have been violated by denial of standby. So I am asking him what rights, how did the county, essentially, how did the county violate his rights? And I'm asking him what standby is, because he's already testified he is knowledgeable about what that is. And he told me a definition. And so I am testing his credibility and his foundation to speak to that, to testify to that by asking him where in the MOU what he is claiming standby is located.
And how much time do you want him to look for it?
Yeah, because there's a bunch of pages.
Okay. Well, isn't it true that the definition of standby that you testified to is not in the MOU?
No, it's in the MOU.
Okay, so then I'm asking you to tell us where that is.
May I just interrupt again? The county continues to misstate who filed this grievance, who owns the grievance. It is the union's grievance filed on behalf of its members. So just because Jeremy is one of the people named in the grievance does not mean that it is his, nor that he is claiming anything. The union has a right to enforce its contract. Therefore,
It
the
is-
union files grievances. Jeremy, give me a second. And so I don't think it is relevant at all what Jeremy thinks is in the contract and whether that is true or not.
I think
Yeah.
if I may comment, the commission is hearing, your points being made, asking these individuals questions on their perspectives. And so, we can't have it one-sided where their perspectives only matter when you're asking the questions. And so we understand that where the grievance was filed from, but if we're going to hear the perspectives of the individuals that are listed on the grievance, I think it's fair that that we do get their input. If we're going to have them here as witnesses and, uh, asking them their interpretation of schedules and things of that nature, I think this is actually right in line with their understanding.
And I'm gonna go ahead and sustain your objection.
I found it.
I'm sorry, so you are sustaining it, so I cannot ask them questions about their personal knowledge of what standby pay is?
Well, if we could get him on the same page where he could read it directly. So if we can get to that point, because right now we're at a standstill because we're not able to find the document. So,
Okay.
I found it.
okay.
May I
Go
ask
ahead.
him
You may-
questions? Okay,
Yeah, ask a question.
okay, and where is that located, Jeremy?
That is on Union Exhibit 8, page 25. And it is under 14.02.00 slash standby pay.
Okay, and where is it discussing fire master mechanics there?
It says when an employee is required, we're all employees. When an employee is required to stand by, they shall be compensated for such standby time at the rate of $4 per hour. Night duty differential is on 15.01.00.
Okay, and so is the definition that you gave us in there, in the memorandum of understanding?
It is. It's standby pay. When you're asked to be put on standby, you should be compensated at the rate of $4 an hour. It's in the MOU.
Okay, all right, thank you. No further questions at this time.
Do we have any redirects?
None.
Okay, we'll go with the commission. Mr. Perez, do you have any questions?
I do, just a minute here. All right, Mr. Witten, I'm Commissioner Abel Perez. On May 17th, 2023, this could be found on Exhibit 2. You were copied in on an email that was sent from Ashley Diaz to Ryan Knoll. At that time, were you aware ahead of time that that email was being sent and that you would be copied in on it?
Yes, I was.
And did you personally have any interaction prior to that or any conversation with your what would seemingly be the union rep copied in, Miguel Barragan?
Yes.
Okay. What date did that conversation between you and Miguel happen?
We get back to the exhibit.
You know, an approximate time frame prior to the email being sent and you copied on is would suffice.
I got multiple ones here. Was that about the meeting? It's
Yeah,
been-
I'm referencing when a conversation may have occurred between you and Miguel Barragan regarding the standby pay that led to the email being sent on May 17th, 2023.
May 17th, 2023 at 4:56 PM.
Correct, that email.
Yep, I'm on it.
All right. So prior to that email being sent, did you personally have any interaction with Miguel Barragan?
We were back and forth through the email.
Prior to this email being sent, prior to this email at 4:56 p.m. that day?
Prior to the email, not to my knowledge, no. That was
Okay.
2 years ago.
Gotcha. But you didn't personally have a conversation with Miguel Barragan prior to Ashley sending this email?
No, we all did it as a group.
Okay. And to the best of your knowledge, who was the one in communication directly with Miguel Barragan?
It was Ashley.
Okay. All right. Thank you. That's all I got.
Yep.
Hey, Joe, have anything? Bill?
Hi, Jeremy. I'm Bill Atwood. I'm the one waving my hand.
Hello.
Just a couple of questions. You stated the calendar started in 2021. And so I was a little, now you've stuck him with my bald head. I'm a little curious why it started in 2021.
It's just a retaliation, the fear of our job and the way we were treated. But we can't really get into that, but that's kind of what it was. We all have,
So how long had you worked for the county before 2021?
I started in September 3rd of 2018.
Okay, so 3 years, okay. Then you said later in your testimony, you said there was no standby pay and you noticed that in June of 2023. But you stated that you had contacted HR in March of 2023. And did I misunderstand you or?
Yeah, the schedule actually started in the beginning of 21.
Right. But then you said there would be no standby pay as of June of 2023, but you said that you contacted HR in March of 2023.
Yes, so HR and Ryan and Matt and all that, we were told that there was some agreement when Ryan was a fire master mechanic before he was management. There was some agreement like 7 years ago, and HR, we even got told this by Susan Carter, that there was some agreement that they like verbally did. It wasn't even really signed. That me and Roy have never seen it. So we were just going off of their hearsay, and that's what we were told.
You were told that there was service pay.
No, we were told that the trucks were, if you take the trucks home, then you don't get standby. But we never seen that paper, we never signed it. And that was before Ryan was in management.
Okay, I'm a little confused because when you mentioned later that service pay, the standby compensation, and then you mentioned page 25 of the union exhibit, the definition of standby pay, and nowhere does it mention a truck. And so
Yeah.
you said at one point I've heard in testimony, you could have the truck in your driveway, and that was in lieu of standby pay. Another time I've heard it was a privilege to have the truck. And
Yeah.
another time I'm hearing you don't get standby pay.
Yeah, so to have the truck in lieu of standby pay was where that paper that was signed before me and Roy even started there, that's what we were told. Until we went to HR
okay.
for another reason and everything came up.
Okay, but who told you, excuse me, who told you that the truck would be in lieu of standby pay?
Ryan Knoll.
Okay. But you never saw any paperwork on that. You just accepted what Ryan said.
Yes, he was my immediate supervisor.
Okay. And if you had the truck in your driveway as a privilege instead of the $4 an hour, was that truck available for personal use?
Nope.
Okay,
Not at
so
all.
if you're on standby and you get the call, okay, I don't want to know your exact address, but where do you, if you got a call out and you had to go to Oakhurst to fix a fire engine, okay, where do you live roughly in the county?
I lived off of Business 41 and Avenue 12.
Okay, and where was the station where you would have to pick up the truck?
It was at my house. In my
But if
driveway.
it wasn't at your house, where would you have had to go?
Station 19 on Bonnadeli Avenue and 36.
Roughly how many miles? 10 miles or?
Oh, no, probably 6.
Okay, 6 miles. So you would have had to go from your house there, pick it up, then drive to wherever, take the truck back, and then head home, correct?
Yeah, if that was the situation, but that wasn't the situation.
Because you had the truck at the house.
Correct.
And as soon as you got the call, the clock started for your overtime and you'd be off standby time, correct?
Yes.
And then as soon as you got back, I assume you're portal to portal, so you would be off of overtime and you would be back on standby time.
Yes.
And but then you were told there wouldn't be any, according to you, you were told in June of 2023 there would be no standby time.
Correct.
And when did you contact your union?
In March of 23.
Okay, therein lies my question. You're telling me you contacted the union in March of 2023,
Mm-hmm.
but you didn't hear about the problem until June of 2023.
Yeah,
So,
it took a couple months because Macomb wasn't in the office yet. It was a transition in between Matt getting out of there and Macomb getting in there. So there was
uh-huh. And so you were hearing rumors of this, so you contacted the union in advance?
no, we actually went to HR over different situations.
Uh-huh.
And then the standby pay came up in there. And then that's when we contacted the union. But we actually, when we first went to HR, we didn't have the union there. It was
Okay.
a formal meeting.
It was what kind of meeting?
A formal meeting. It was just us three and HR, but they did it separate. We
Okay,
weren't all in there at the same time.
so the union hears in March of 2023, you're not getting standby pay, correct?
Correct.
And the union did nothing for you? I'm not
I-
attacking the union. I'm just saying you,
No, that's when it started.
Commissioner, may I interrupt? This witness said that he never personally contacted the union. It was all done by another grievant, Ashley Diaz. So whatever
Oh.
he's saying about when he contacted, he doesn't have a basis for that because it was done by somebody else.
oh,
So
okay,
this
but,
timeline is,
so. Okay, but,
Literally.
okay, I'm just trying to understand. So you were hearing things, you were talking to HR in March of 2023. You're told about some problems and standby service pay came up during that March 2023 meeting. And then you were notified by Ryan, no service pay in June of 2023, correct?
For the standby in 2023?
Yes.
No, that's when our trucks got took away.
Okay. So then you, okay, now I'm really confused. So if you were told that the truck was in lieu of standby pay, they took the truck away in 2023, in June of 23, did the standby pay start?
No, we only got paid standby pay 1 month.
Okay,
The standby pay did not start. We just took the trucks away and there was nobody on call after hours.
okay. And then I guess my final question is, okay, so who fills out the payroll form to get the standby pay? I don't know how it works in Madera County, so do you fill out a form? Does,
No, when we do on NeoGov, when we do our time card, there's a line item for
Uh-huh.
standby pay. And we would put it in there if we were getting standby pay, and then it'd be added to your check. And then it would have to be approved by Ryan Knoll, and then it would have to be approved by either Liz or Angela downtown or Chief McComb, whoever was there. Would
And
have
you
to
did-
give final approval.
okay, then did you insert it? I assume it's on a computer. Did you insert that in and list that you had standby pay coming?
Only 1 month. And that's when Ashley was made to pay it back. Me and Roy wasn't. And then we were told after that, shortly after that, like right after that is when our trucks were took away and there was no more standby pay. But we went to HR first and asked them and they told us to put standby pay on there. And then it got reversed, but me and Roy didn't have to pay it back for that 1 month.
And they told you because why that you didn't qualify for standby pay?
In lieu of taking the trucks home, some paper they had like 7 years ago that we've never seen. We've asked for it. We've just never seen it. We've never signed anything.
Okay, I'm less confused, but I'm still somewhat confused. Okay, so if I think of something else, Beverly?
No, I don't have any questions. Go ahead, Abel.
Mr. Wynn, I think it's important that we're clear. In March of 2023, did you talk or bring, did you voice your concerns regarding standby pay to a union, anybody, any representation from the union?
Yeah, in 2023, yeah.
And who was that individual?
Miguel.
Good.
Okay, well then, it's Bill Atwood again. So when you brought this up to Miguel and you said, okay, I'm told that if I have the truck, I don't get standby pay. Then they tell you this magical piece of paper that no one seems to have.
He never
Existed.
told HR.
HR tells you that there was this piece of paper unagreed upon,
Yeah, Susan Carter did.
but Miguel never said, produce that paper to the county.
He did, and they said we weren't here to talk about that right now.
Okay, and the union did not pursue that as far as you are aware.
Yeah, well, that's what we're pursuing right now.
Right, okay. Thank you.
Any other questions from the commission? Any redirect?
I just have couple questions. Mr. Witten, isn't it true that standby pay under the memorandum of understanding must be pre-approved by the county administrative officer?
Yes, it should.
Okay. You just testified that standby would have to be approved by Ryan, Liz with the Auditor Controller's Office, and Chief McComb. Is
Oh,
that
no,
correct?
That was standby pay, not to be on standby.
Well, would you be paid standby if you were, or standby pay if you were not on standby?
No,
Okay. So then isn't it true that any standby that you worked would have had to have been pre-approved by the county administrative officer?
yes.
Okay, thank you.
It,
That's-
I had this backwards. I'm sorry. I should have had you go first, but
That's okay, thank you.
my mistake. I jumped the gun there. Sorry.
I always have more questions.
Okay.
Jeremy, you just testified about about approval for standby pay. Do you recall that testimony?
Yeah.
Okay, what is your understanding of who needed to approve your standby shift, not the pay?
The supervisor. Immediate supervisor. If they ask you, and I'm assuming that they had, because I only go to the supervisor, they have to go higher up than I do. So if they ask me to be put on standby, I'm assuming that it's already been approved from higher up.
Okay, and you had mentioned this June 2023 date. Do you recall that?
Yes,
Okay, at any point before your truck was taken away in June of 2023, were you ever paid standby pay in addition to that 1 month that you already testified about?
no, just that 1 month.
And this agreement that you were notified of regarding the trucks in lieu of standby pay, who, from your understanding, entered into this agreement?
Ryan Noel, Matt
Objection
Watson.
lacks foundation. Witness testified he'd never seen the agreement before.
But may I respond?
Sure.
He was notified of the agreement by Susan Carter, who is an human resources representative, and so whatever she said to the grievance they can testify about here.
I'm gonna overrule.
Jeremy, from your understanding, who entered into the agreement regarding the trucks in lieu of standby pay?
It was Ryan Noel and Matt Watson had a conversation. But I first heard about the agreement from Susan Carter.
And after June of 2023, when your truck was taken away, were you still required to respond to work calls after your regular hours?
No. We left our phone at work.
Okay, you testified about contacting the union sometime in March of 2023. Do you recall that testimony?
Yes,
Okay, were you the person who personally contacted the union, or was that somebody else?
it was Ashley Diaz. We did it as a group, but through her phone and her contact.
Can you please elaborate on this example that you gave when you missed a call and you were chewed out by your words? Can you elaborate on that situation?
Yeah, it was a Saturday night. It was about, I think about 10:30 at night. I was laying in bed and no names. A guy from Station 3 called me and I didn't answer the phone because I wasn't on call. That was one of Ryan's weekends. And then so Ryan called me right after and I was like, all right, I guess I'll answer it. So I answered it. And Ryan said, hey, so-and-so is trying to get a hold of you from Station 3. And I said, yeah, he called me and then he asked me personal questions. I'm not going to go into it. And then at the end of the conversation, because I don't remember what holiday it was, but we're off that Monday. He told me, we'll talk about this Tuesday morning when you get in. And then so when I got into work Tuesday morning, because I told him, I said, I'm not on call. You're on call. And then when I got in Tuesday morning, he didn't talk to me for about 2 or 3 days. He kind of stayed in his office and away.
Was there any further interaction between you and Ryan about that incident?
No, we kind of just bygones be bygones. It's not really worth getting into. He looked his way, I looked mine, and we just went on about the day.
No further questions.
Do we have any redirect? Do we have any questions from the commission? Mr. Rios?
Mr. Whitten, when they gave you the truck in lieu of standby pay, how many times did they call you to actually go out and do whatever work you needed to do?
It varied. I can get 2 calls in a week, or I can get 7 calls a day. It varied. Fire season, there's no like exact number to put on it, but it was a lot. But sometimes, like I said, I wouldn't go out but once or twice the whole 7 days or whenever I'm on call. And then some days I'd go out like 4 or 5 times.
Okay, thank you.
Questions? Okay, are we done with this witness?
Yes, thank you.
Mr. Whitten, thank you very much for your time and you're excused.
Yes, sir.
And we take a few minutes. We need to meet with our council at the request of one of our commissioners. About 5 minutes to do it.
Jane calls Roy Minnick as its next witness.
But state your name and the position you held or hold. Is your green light on? Put that,
Oh, there he is. My name is Roy Minnick. I am currently a fire master mechanic for Madera County Fire.
okay, go ahead.
Thank you.
Mr. President, I believe you need to swear in, Mr.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh,
Yes,
yeah.
I do. Okay, do you solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you are about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Roy, how long have you been employed by the county as a mechanic?
The 9th of this month would have been 7 years.
And did you say, do you work for a specific department in the county?
Yes, I work for Madera County Fire as a mechanic.
Can you generally describe what your job duties are as a mechanic for the county's fire department?
To fix broken fire trucks. And so we would have to go out on call during the day, sometimes to stations. If we could fix a fire truck at a fire station, we could be called out during the day or at night to go out and fix a fire truck that was broken down on the side of the road, or go wait for a tow truck to show up to tow a truck back to the shop. And our daily hours were 8 to 5,
8 to 5.
Monday
what-
through Friday.
Okay, what days of the week did you work?
Monday through Friday.
Did you work with any other mechanics at any point while you've been with the department, the fire department?
Yes, Jeremy Witten, and we currently have a new mechanic, Brian Murphy.
Did you work directly with anyone else during your time as a mechanic at the department?
Brian Knoll, he would work in the shop every now and then.
And what's Ryan Knowles' position title?
It's, I have no idea what his title is now. When I first started, it was, they called him a FEM, which is a fleet equipment manager. And then it changed to, I believe, fire equipment manager. And I think just this last year it changed again. I have no idea what it is now.
Who was your supervisor while you were at the fire department?
Brian Knoll.
So during any time that you were a mechanic, the fire department, were you required to work after your regular scheduled work hours that you already testified about?
Yes.
Okay, how often were you required to work after your regular scheduled hours?
The first probably year and a half, well, after I was hired, it was probably 2 to 3 weeks before I was put in my service truck. And at that point, I was told that I would be on call to go out after hours from after 5 PM till 8 in the morning at any time.
And who told you that?
Ryan Knoll.
Did you have a county issued cell phone?
Yes, I do,
And what would you use that cell phone for?
for business. I would receive calls from the firefighters. If a truck broke down, I would receive a call from a battalion chief if a fire truck broke down. ECC, Central Command, could get a hold of us through that phone. And if we needed to contact, say, a BC or ECC, if we were taking a fire truck out of service for a broken issue,
Can you just explain what a PC and an ECC is?
ECC is Central Command, which is dispatch for CAL FIRE, and well, it's actually for the unit, Madera, Mariposa, and Merced counties. They handle all the 911 calls.
Okay, and did you also say PC or did I mishear?
A BC, battalion chief.
Okay. And did you use this county cell phone after hours as well?
If I got a call on it for business.
Was it your understanding that you were required to answer that phone after
Yes.
hours?
Yes,
And where did you get that understanding?
from Ryan Knoll.
And you testified that you began to take the service truck home about 2 to 3 weeks after you started working at the fire
Yeah,
department,
yes.
is that correct?
Yes.
At that point, how frequently were you working after hours?
It depends. Sometimes, like Jeremy stated in his testimony, that you could be called out once a night. You might not get a call for 3 days. You could be called out twice a night, 3 times a night. You could be called out on the weekends. It just varied.
To clarify my question, at that point, how often were you expected to be available for calls after hours?
7 days a week.
And at that time, who else was on call at the same time that you were on call?
Ryan was at that time.
Ryan was or was not?
He was. So if a piece of equipment had broken down, they would call Ryan, notify Ryan, and he would call me and ask me to go out. Or if it was close enough to him, he would go out.
And so how long did this, after hours work calls 7 days a week, how long did that last?
Till we came up with the schedule in 2021.
And when you say we came up with the schedule, who's we?
Well, I should say Ryan came up with the schedule.
Your knowledge, what prompted the creation of the schedule?
We were on call 365 days out of the year, and we were trying to get family time to do stuff, and we couldn't plan anything because we didn't know when we were going to be called out. If a call was close to me, I would get the call. If a call was closer to Jeremy, something broke down, he would go out. So we never knew who would have to go out. And we didn't know what day of week it would happen on.
Can you elaborate more on the kind of work that you were expected to respond to after hours?
If a fire truck broke down, we had to go out and see if we could fix it in the field. And if we couldn't fix it in the field, then we would call a tow truck and have it towed back to the shop. Flat tire, it could be, say, truck doesn't want to start. It be stuck in the mud, have to call a tow truck, have truck pulled out.
Um,
Because our policy was if someone was stuck and they had to be pulled out by a tow truck, we had to be there after the tow truck pulled them out to inspect the truck to make sure nothing was damaged on the truck before it went back into service.
and any of the tasks that you just listed, was it your understanding that any of that could be done in the next business day during regular business hours?
If it involved a tow truck, somebody being stuck, no. We had to go out and do that then.
Okay, did any of the other tasks that you mentioned, could any of those be pushed to the next business day?
It would depend on what had happened.
So if you received a call from work after hours, what was your understanding of how quickly you were expected to respond to those calls?
We had 1 hour to respond to the call.
And who told you that you had 1 hour to respond?
That came from Ryan Knoll.
And what did it mean to respond in 1 hour?
We had to respond to the calls. In other words, we had to call back whoever called us to find out the issue or the problem.
During this time, did you think that you had an option to not be on call if you didn't want to be?
No,
And why did you think that you did not have an option?
because that was what we were told. That's part of the job.
So during any time that you responded to a call after hours, how were you compensated?
We were compensated by overtime. And the time usually started when we left our house. And then when we returned, our time would stop.
Are Are you familiar with what standby pay is under the SEIU 521 contract with the County of Madera?
Somewhat. I'd have to look at it again.
Okay, just based on your general knowledge of what standby pay is, were you ever compensated with standby pay for any of this after hours work that you did?
Just 1 month.
And when was that 1 month?
That was back in May of, I believe, 2023.
And why were you paid only on that 1 month?
That is when we went to HR over the standby pay for the first time. And we told them that we had been doing standby, and they said, well, if you are doing standby, then you're obligated to put it on your timesheet.
And had you ever tried to put standby on your timesheet before this instance?
No,
And why not?
because we were told that if we take a truck home, then we will not receive standby pay.
Who told you that?
Ryan Knoll,
Were you given the option to not take the truck home?
not really. A conversation had come up between Jeremy Ryan and myself at one point in time, right after Jeremy had started working there. And we asked about the standby pay in the trucks. We were told either we can take the trucks home or we can take standby, but we can't have both. Either you leave your truck at the shop and you take the standby pay, or you get to drive the truck home in lieu of standby.
So did you ever try to leave your truck at work and not take it home?
No,
Do you have any understanding of where that rule came from?
Brian had told us that possibly, I believe it was 4 to 6 years before we were employed there, that the employees at that time had come to an agreement with, I don't know who, I don't know if it was HR or the union, that that's the agreement that they came up with, that you can't have both. It's either you get standby pay or you get to take the truck home.
So what kinds of things would you do to be ready to respond to work calls after hours?
If I was on call that week, well, during the first year and a half, you would just go home and I would make sure that my breakfast, lunch was all made for the next day. By the time when I got home, I would put out fresh clothes for the next day. Make sure my clothes were ready. If I got a call in the middle of the night, I could get up, change, and go out.
Were there any personal things that you could not do in order to stay prepared to be on call?
Yes, we couldn't be at least 30 minutes from our house.
And why is that?
Uh, Before Jeremy had started, I was on call one weekend. Me and my wife were actually in Fresno shopping, and I had gotten a call. And we had to drop what we were doing, drive all the way back to Chowchilla where I live, so I could get my service truck and go out. And after that day, or after that weekend, I talked to Ryan about it on a Monday morning, and I believe the conversation was about that. And he says, well, You shouldn't be at least more than 30 minutes from your house if you're on standby. Or on call.
And would Ryan refer to it as standby or on call?
I believe you refer to it as both.
Were there any other things that you could not do while you were on call?
Couldn't have a drink. Couldn't stay up late. Couldn't go to parties with friends. Couldn't go to the movies. If we had to do shopping in Fresno, usually my wife had to do it by herself. I couldn't go. Couldn't plan vacations really unless we asked Ryan first.
So were you expected to be on call while you were on vacation or had a day off?
No.
Can you look at, in the binder should be Union Exhibit 7? And let me know when you're there. Okay.
Yes.
Do you recognize this document?
Yes, I do.
Okay, what is this?
This is our on-call sheet for the month of February 2023.
Okay, and if you flip through the multiple pages in Union Exhibit 7, is this the on-call sheets for the entire year of 2023?
Yes, it is.
Okay, and was this on-call sheet or a similar one utilized in any other years
Yes.
besides 2023?
Yes, it started in January 2021.
And who would create this document?
Ryan,
What input, if any, did you have on when you were included on the on-call sheet?
we didn't have any input.
So can you look at any particular month on this calendar and let me know how often your name appears in any given month?
If you look at like January 2023, my name appears 10 times. Oh, excuse me, 12 times.
And after this document was created in January of 2021, were you ever required to be available to respond to work calls after hours if your name was not on a designated day?
Yes, sometimes we would have to go out if it wasn't our week to be on call. Or
And-
if it was Ryan's weekend to be on call.
So can you elaborate on why you would have to respond to calls if it was Ryan's weekend to be on call?
A lot of times things would break on the weekends and they would try to get a hold of Ryan and either his phone was off or it went straight to voicemail. So if something was broke down, they would either call Jeremy or they would call me to see if we were available to fix it.
And in those instances, did you still respond even though you were not on call per the calendar that day?
Yes,
And why?
it's a fire truck. It's an emergency apparatus. It needs to be in service.
Was it ever communicated to you by anyone that you were expected to respond to after hours calls, even if your name was not on the calendar?
We figured it was our part of our job to make sure that these fire trucks stayed on the road. Because we were told at one time that it's a privilege to work for Madera County Fire.
And what did you understand that to mean in terms of responding to after hours calls?
Objection calls for speculation.
On my question or the objection?
He stated that he was told that it was a privilege to work for Madera County Fire. And then the question was, how did that relate to being on standby? It was something that somebody else told him. So he would have to know what their mental processes were in order to answer that question.
Or what his understanding is, not what that person's intent in their brain, why they said that. So, who was the person who told you it is a privilege to work there?
Brian Knoll.
And what did you understand that to mean?
That it was part of our job to make sure these fire trucks stayed on the road. And were in service.
Can you flip to Union Exhibit 8? Is the memorandum of understanding?
Yes,
Are you there?
yes,
Okay. Have you ever seen this document before?
yes.
Are you are you aware that there's a standby pay provision in this contract?
Yes.
And when was the first time that you recall looking at the standby provision in this contract?
I believe it was around March of 2023.
It, what prompted you at that time to look at the contract?
That's when we originally went to HR without the union about the standby pay.
Why hadn't you looked at the contract before this time?
Because we were previously told that it was either you get to take truck home or you get standby pay. It's one or the other. Because we were told that there was a verbal agreement between previous employees at Madera County Fire, and we don't know who else. We don't know if it was HR or the union.
And you previously testified that it was Ryan Knoll that informed you of that?
Yes.
Did anyone else in the county also inform you of that agreement or something similar?
When we were going through the grievance process with HR over the standby pay, we were told that when we met with Justin McComb in HR department.
And it was that the meeting that you're referring to in March of 2023, or was this
No.
another meeting?
No,
Okay, when was the meeting where you were told regarding this agreement by HR?
I believe it was in either May or June of 2023. I believe it was more June.
And in this meeting with Human Resources around May or June of 2023, at that point, was the union involved in this process?
Yes, union was involved.
Okay, but in the prior meeting in March of 2023 that you testified that you met with HR, was the union involved at that point?
No, they were not.
And in that March 2023 meeting, did you or others bring up the standby pay issue?
Yes, we did.
Okay, and what did you bring up in that meeting?
We told them that we had been on standby for the last 5 years, and we had noticed in the memorandum that there was a standby provision if you were put on standby. And basically HR told us that they would check into it and get back to us.
Did they tell you anything about whether or not you would be paid standby going forward?
No, that's when we brought up the issue of being on standby, and that's when they said that we could actually put the standby pay on our check for that 1 month.
And what month was that approximately?
I believe that was the month of March.
And besides March of 2023, were you able to put standby pay on any other pay stub?
No,
And why not?
because we were told if we got to take the trucks home, that we would not receive standby pay.
To your knowledge, at what point was the union first notified by you or someone else about the standby pay issue?
I believe it was late April when we actually called the union headquarters or main office about filing a grievance with the county over the standby. And that's when they actually gave us Miguel's number, who is the SEIU representative for Madera County. And that's when we contacted him. I believe it was right around the end of April, first part of May.
To your knowledge, was at this point, when the union was first contacted, was there a grievance filed regarding the standby pay issue?
No, there was not.
So you testified that perhaps in April, no, the second time that you met with Human Resources was sometime in May or June of 2023, is that correct?
Yes, it was after we had already started the grievance process. I believe it was in June when we met with HR.
Okay, and can you recall or list the individuals that were involved in that grievance meeting?
With HR or how we started the grievance process?
That meeting with HR?
Aaron Herring, I believe, was in the meeting with HR, who is shop steward for Madera County. Miguel Berrigan was there. uh, Jeremy Witten, Ashley Diaz, myself, Justin McComb, Susan Carter, and I can't remember the other representatives for HR. I believe there's one other one that was contract enforcement at that time. I can't remember her name. And I believe they had 3 or 4 other people that were taking notes.
And prior to this meeting with all of the individuals that you just listed, were there any other previous grievance meetings?
No,
Can you look at excuse me. Can you look at Union Exhibit 2, starting on page 3? It's an email from Ashley to Ryan and URCC.
Exhibit 2, which page?
Page 3.
Yes.
Is that your email copied on this?
Yes, I am CC'd on this email.
What was your understanding of the purpose of this email?
This was to set up a meeting for times to meet with Ryan Knoll to start the grievance process.
And why were you trying to meet with Ryan Knoll specifically?
Because this is the first step of how you're supposed to start a grievance according to the union. You're supposed to go to your immediate supervisor and try to resolve the issue at the very bottom first.
And did this meeting with only your immediate supervisor, did that ever occur?
No, it did not.
Do you know why that meeting didn't occur?
We don't know why. But according to the union, we had to give them 10 days to respond before we could move on to the next step.
Can you please turn to Union Exhibit 6?
Okay.
Have you seen this document before?
Yes, I have.
And when have you seen this?
I actually found this document in with some of my stuff that I was given when I was hired.
And who gave you this document?
This document actually came from HR department. It was in my entry folder when I was hired.
And after your hire date, did you ever look at this document again?
I didn't actually find this document until August of 2023.
What prompted you to look for this document in August of 2023?
Because at one point in time, Ryan Knoll told me that there was a provision in county code that they could drive their service trucks home with standby pay. But he could never find it.
So what was your understanding of what this document meant?
My understanding of this document is that we could actually drive our trucks home and park them in front of our houses every night, whether we are on standby or not.
At this point, I would like to move Union Exhibit 6 into evidence.
And the county would just object that this document is not relevant in this matter. That would just be the objection.
You may wish to ask council to elaborate on the relevancy, see if there's a continued objection. If you need help with the legal
Yeah,
definition, I could provide that as well.
If you could do that.
Yes, so it is irrelevant because it contradicts what the grievance were told from county representatives regarding taking their fire truck, their service truck home and getting standby pay. And so it was in the hiring documents and it demonstrates that regardless of whether someone was on standby and they work for the fire department, they are able to take their trucks home. And that's what they were told when they were hired.
Commissioner, I would also give county council an opportunity to respond.
Yeah, please. Have a
Well,
response.
I would just observe that standby is not even discussed in the document. It only has to do with that repair vehicles of the fire department operated by fire master mechanics may be parked at homes, the fire master mechanics. There's nothing obligatory, and it does not mention standby.
May I, subdivision A, the last sentence toward the end, provided the employees on standby duty for immediate call back to work. That's what it says.
Do you have anything else? Got it?
That's fine. I can cross-examine the witness on this. That's fine.
Okay, so you want, you're overruled on your objection.
Okay, thank you.
And with that, I have no further questions for this witness on direct exam.
Okay, cross-examination.
Thank you. Mr. Minnick, is that correct? I keep wanting to mispronounce it and I apologize. I'm going to do my best to get that correct. At any time, were you driving an emergency vehicle when you were during the after hours calls? During your after hours calls or at any point during your employment with Madera County, were you driving an emergency vehicle?
Our repair trucks are considered emergency vehicles. They have code 3 lights on them.
Okay. And so you're saying that that is not a repair vehicle of the fire department?
It's a repair vehicle, but is also considered emergency vehicle too. It does have code 3 lights on it.
Okay. Okay. During your direct exam, you were asked about Union Exhibit 2. I'd have you refer back to that. And looking back at page 3, let me know when you're there.
Okay.
You were discussing, or you testified that your understanding of the purpose of this email was to engage in the first step of the grievance process. Is that correct?
Yes.
And that would be to bring the grievance up to your, or to the immediate supervisor. Is that correct?
Yes,
And so is it your testimony then that there was a grievance as of May 17th, 2023?
the grievance hadn't been filed yet because we were trying to get the first step. We
So-
were trying to resolve the grievance, but before we had to file it with HR. We were trying to get it done at the lowest level first.
But there was no grievance in existence at that time, isn't that right?
I cannot remember the first date that we actually filed the grievance.
Okay, I can help you with that. Go ahead and turn to Union Exhibit 1.
Okay,
And do you see the date at the bottom right-hand corner of that document?
6/1/23.
Okay,
Is that the one you're referring to?
yes, it is.
Okay.
So in fact, wasn't the date of the grievance June, excuse me, June 1st, 2023?
Yes, this is when we filed the grievance, I believe, with the county.
Okay, so in fact, when that email went out on May 17th, 2023, the grievance had not yet been filed, isn't that right?
Yes, according to the email,
Okay.
yes.
Thank you. Just want to clarify, I think you testified that you notified the union of your interest, I think is how you said, in filing a grievance related to the standby pay issue in April of 2023. Is that correct?
I believe it was late April, maybe the first part of May, when we contacted the union
Okay, thank you.
on the process.
And you testified that you looked at the standby pay provision in March of 2023, and it was around that time that you brought up your standby concerns to HR. Is that correct?
Yes,
So in fact, you knew about your concerns related to standby in March of 2023. Is that correct?
yes.
Thank you. You testified that related to your after-hours calls, and when I think you used the term on-call, you were not on call when you were on vacation. Is that a correct statement of your testimony?
Yes, if we were on vacation, we were not on call or
Okay,
call back.
okay. And so in fact, you were not on call or on standby 365 days of the year as you testified, correct?
Yes, that would be correct. If I was on vacation, then I was not on call.
Okay, thank you. And I think you testified that you couldn't be at least 30 minutes from your house. But I think, did you mean that you couldn't be more than 30 minutes from your house? I just want to make sure I understand your testimony on that. So this was related to the directive, supposed directive that Ryan gave you related to how close to your house you needed to be at all times? Was it that you could not be more than 30 minutes from your house?
What do you,
You don't recall testifying to that? Okay, don't
I'm
need to
I'm
go
just
over
trying to understand the question.
I'm trying to understand, I'm trying to clarify your testimony. You stated that you could not be at least 30 minutes from your house.
Yes, that is correct.
So you had to be more than 30 minutes from your house at all times.
No,
So then what you meant was you could not be more than 30 minutes from your house. Is that
Okay,
right?
Objection asked and answered, and he's being argumentative. And he's badgering the witness. Thank you.
I believe you testified that you had 1 hour to respond to the after hours calls,
yes, to respond, at least call them back.
at least call them back. So not
Yes.
to respond to the field.
No, that would be hard to do. I live in Chowchilla. So
Okay.
say engine broke down in Oakers, there's no way I can get to Oakers from Chowchilla in an hour.
Okay.
it's an hour and a half from my house.
So if you have an hour to call back, couldn't you not pick up the call, be 45 minutes from your house, drive 45 minutes home, and call back, and you would still be within your time, and there would be no knowledge of how far you had been from your house? What, do you know what the purpose was of the 30-minute provision?
Okay, objection. Compound, those are two separate questions. Can we ask them one at a time?
Sure. Okay. Do you know what the provision of the 30-minute limitation was? Do you know what the purpose of that was?
So we could get to the call as soon as we could.
So then, but you had 1 hour to simply call back if you were called, right?
Yes,
Okay. So you could have been 45 minutes from your house and still made it within that callback time. Isn't that correct?
yes, I could have, but I never did.
Okay. I think you testified that Ryan was also on call. That was in the period prior to when the schedule was created. Is that correct?
Yes,
Okay, thank you. I think you testified that you had been told that being on call was part of the job. I don't believe that you specified who told you that. Who did tell you that?
Ryan Knoll did.
Okay. And you testified at one point that you were obligated when you put standby on your time card, and I think that was around March of 2023, I think is what you said. And I think what you said was that you were obligated to put standby on your timesheet. Can you clarify what you mean by that?
When we took this to HR and we talked to them about the standby pay, they basically told us, can't remember their exact words, if you are on standby, then you can put standby pay on your timesheet.
Okay. And I think you testified that you were familiar with the standby provisions of the memorandum of understanding. Isn't that right?
I'd have to look at it.
Okay. Based on your recollection, is the county administrative officer's authorization required before standby can be assigned?
Or your immediate supervisor, I believe.
Okay. I'd like to have you turn to Exhibit 8 and page 25. And up there at the top is section or article 14, standby compensation. Do you see that?
Yes,
Okay. Where in there does it say that the immediate supervisor can authorize standby?
it does not, but
Okay.
he has to get his authorization from somebody else to put us on standby.
Okay, thank you. No further questions at this time.
Does council have any redirect?
I have just one or two questions. Roy, you said before there was the on-call schedule, Ryan was also on call after hours. Do you recall that testimony?
Yes,
Okay, and when Ryan was also on call, did that mean that you did not have to answer your phone after hours?
no, it still meant I had to answer my phone. And to clarify, Ryan was on on call until he gave his truck up to Jeremy.
And approximately how long was that?
Jeremy stated that he started in, when was it, September? And he received his truck probably 3 weeks after he started. So when Ryan gave his truck up to Jeremy for that week when he went on vacation, then Ryan was basically no longer on call until he got his new service truck.
Okay, but regardless of whether Ryan was on call or not, you were still expected to answer your phone.
Yes.
No further questions.
Russ,
No, thank you.
this time, Commissioners, Joe, do you have any questions to ask?
Yes, excuse me. Mr. Monique, is that how you spell it?
Minnick.
Okay, sorry about that.
It's all right.
How long, since when have you been on standby call? How long, since when have you been on standby?
I believe I was put on standby after the third week I started to work for the county.
What year was that?
That would be 2018.
2018. Okay, I believe earlier you said that you were on standby Monday through Friday, but then you went on for 7 days a week.
That is correct. Until they came up with the call.
And then also you indicated that that you wanted to be on standby call because it was important to you.
Yes.
Could you tell us why?
You work for a fire department. You want to keep your first responders out on the road to be able to help the community. Put out fires, cut people out of cars that have been in accidents.
And,
That's
in 2023, you were compensated for 1 month for standby, right?
yes.
Did you? It's been 5 years, supposedly, that you have not gotten paid, all three of you. Do you find that odd?
Like I stated before, we were told that there was agreement that was come to before we even started between the employees.
Okay, you were told that. But they also knew that you were behind 5 years?
I actually did not actually look at this memorandum until 2023.
The last question I have is, they told you could take the vehicle home,
Yes.
right? So what is it, a fire truck, utility truck, a pickup, or what was it?
It's a repair vehicle, which is a Ford F-250 that has a utility body on it with all our tools.
And what was the reason why they told you that it was a privilege to take the vehicle home?
Because you work for the fire department.
Just
You're-
to show that you work for the fire department?
It's like you asked me, why do I feel like I need to respond to these calls? It's to keep the first responders on the road. That was part of.
Okay, that's all I have.
Abel?
All right, Mr. Roy, my name's Abel Perez. You know, you used a few terms, you know, you said we figured it was part of our job. It was a privilege. And as you talk about, you know, keeping the first responders on the road, there does seem to be a strong sense of pride in the work that you were performing and the job that you held. Would you agree?
Yes.
Okay. Would you have preferred to leave if it was up to you and you individually, you know, you had the option, would you have chosen to just leave your truck at the site each night?
Yeah,
Okay.
and receive the standby pay, yes.
Okay. Was there any benefit in your opinion or to you personally to taking the truck home?
Besides being able to respond to a call sooner, that was about it.
And that appreciation to respond sooner came from maybe the camaraderie that you had with your peers? Is that safe to say?
Yeah,
Um, you had testified that late April, you had contacted the union, late April, early May. After you had contacted Miguel, who you testified you had been in contact with, what was, what occurred or what communication was given to you between the union, or by the union to you between, the date that you talked to them and May 17th when the, Ashley Diaz's email was sent?
can
Let me try to shorten that. So you stated that, late April, early March, or I'm sorry, you stated April, late April, early May, very late April or very early May, you had reached out to Miguel. That's when you first engaged Miguel, the union representative. From that time that you had reached out to him to the time Ashley Diaz sent her email on May 17th, 2023, what communication, if any, was provided to you?
we actually talked to Miguel about the grievance process and if we actually were entitled, or no, I shouldn't say entitled, if we had a standing behind the standby pay.
Okay. How many conversations occurred between the first time in late April, early May to maybe May 17th?
I cannot recall.
Was it more than one?
It might have been 2
Okay.
to 3 that we had with Miguel before we proceeded.
All right. That's all I got. Thank you. Thank
Okay,
you.
Bill?
Mr. Minnick, I'm Bill Atwood. Don't have a few questions, but I got the name right.
Yes, you did.
Please note that.
Practice.
I wrote it down. Not how you spell it, but how I pronounce it. Okay, on the day you're hired,
Yes, sir.
okay. And welcome to Madera County Fire Department, which I think we all agree is a fabulous group of individuals. The day you're hired, they say, and if we call you in the middle of the night, we call you, what was your understanding? Do I just get paid? Am I on call? What was your understanding briefly of,
We didn't know anything about standby at that time. We figured, because when we were hired, when we went through, I should say, your interview process and everything,
Uh-huh.
they told us that being on call was part of the job.
so you assumed, I'm a school principal, retired principal. If something happens at the school at 1 o'clock in the morning, I'm getting a phone call. I'm not hourly, okay? So it was your understanding when you're hired, if we call you out in the middle of the night, you assume that was part of your salary
Yes,
and you might get overtime or
Yes.
something,
yes,
but that was just part of the job.
yes,
Okay. So you weren't told about standby pay.
no.
Okay. Then the next question is, somebody says you can use the company car, company truck. You mentioned you live in Chowchilla, so that's about 17 or 18 miles from here, as I recall.
22 miles.
Oh, okay. Well, then my math is a little wrong, but it's close enough for government work. You can't use the truck to go grocery shopping or anything. It is
Strictly for work.
right. So the number of miles, doing the math, the advantage to me of getting the truck for a year, that I don't have to pay gas between Chowchilla and Madera, is at 60 cents a mile, gas and everything, would be about $5,300 $5,400 a year, tax-free. Okay, you with me so far?
Yes, I'm with you.
A paid call person at $3 an hour for 365 would come to $19,600. Half of that would be $9,800. So I don't understand why anybody would say, in lieu of being paid $9,800 for 6 months worth of, half a year of standby, or $19,600 a year for full year, why anybody would accept a $5,300 benefit in lieu of $9,800 or even $19,000. How did they explain, or why, how did you accept that? Oh yeah, I can have a company truck that I can't use for anything other than business.
At that point in time, I did not know there was such thing as paid for being on call or
Okay, so-
standby.
Okay, so they said the privilege of the truck is you're going to save the money between here and Chowchilla, and as soon as you get a call back, you're on the clock.
Yes.
Okay, that's fair. So, 2 more quickie questions. I just want to make sure I understood what prompted the March 23rd meeting with HR. What, you're all talking and you're going, and you're drinking coffee and you're going, we got to fix this. What prompted was, it would be hard to call HR. You're going to have bosses mad at you or people talking about you, and something prompted. What prompted, let's call?
The current chief was retiring
Current chief,
for Madera.
okay.
Okay, assistant, how they explain it, assistant, battalion chief for Madera County was retiring.
So if I'm understanding you correctly, you saw a change in management, now is the time to make our move.
Yes.
Okay. And then my final thing, in Exhibit 6, when it says that master mechanics can take the vehicle home, nowhere on that page does it say in lieu of. There was no mention on that sheet. It just said, you guys can take it home. I can't take a school district car home. Okay, but it says you can take your truck home, but it doesn't say in lieu of.
No, it does not.
Okay, and you were aware of that?
I did not find this until August of 2023, this document.
Okay. And then I guess finally, and I truly admire, and I know I speak for all the commissioners, I truly admire the esprit de corps that you have with the fire department. And I so appreciate it as a citizen that you want to make sure the fire engines are running. I really appreciate that. But at some point, as great as you folks are, at some point being told, you can't go to a party, you can't have a beer in the middle of the afternoon, you can't have a glass of wine, you can't go to your kid's game in Mendota. And you say, there's got to be some compensation for this. Because and at some point, prior to 2023, because you were hired a few years earlier, did it not come up in conversation with your buddies? Shouldn't we be compensated for this? Isn't there some provision?
We figured the compensation was, we got paid the overtime when we went out. That's why we pushed Ryan to make the call list.
Okay, so your understanding the whole time was that was just part of the job.
Yes.
Okay. And again, thank you for keeping the trucks going, especially up in the Oakhurst area. Thank you. Okay, I have no more questions.
Beverly?
My name's Beverly Iverson. I just have a question about your involvement with, when did you join the union? And was your shop represented by that?
I believe we joined the union April of 2023, might have been May of 2023.
But not prior to that time?
Not prior to that, no, no
Had you
one,
had-
no one was union.
Okay, and you had no interaction with,
No, we did not.
More questions? Okay. Joe, turn on your mic.
In 2023, you were compensated for 1 month. Now, did you submit a form to get paid for that? Was there a form or something to show that you're getting compensated for that? And if you did, who did you turn it into?
We have to do our time cards on NeoGov. So we would have to input our on-call or standby for whatever days that we were on call on NeoGov on our timesheet. And then it would go to Ryan Knoll, our supervisor, and he would have to approve it. And then from there, it went to like Liz or Justin McComb.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, well, you done? Good. Okay. Ms. Gonzalez, you have any redirection?
I just have a couple of questions. Roy, you mentioned that in early 2023, there was a change in management at the fire department. Can you specify who was being changed?
The assistant battalion chief for Madera County, which would have been Matt Watson at that time, was retiring and Justin McComb was taking over. As they put it, 4205 as CAL FIRE's call numbers.
What's
What's 4205?
It's CAL FIRE's numbers for their division chiefs. There are people in this room that are considered 4200 for CAL FIRE. Then you have Division 4201, that I believe it is Merced County. And then you have 4203, which is another county, 4204, which is like Mariposa, 4205, which is Madera. Yes, it's a designation.
Okay, and why did Matt Watson's retirement influence your decision to bring the standby pay issue to HR?
Because we were afraid of retaliation from him.
No further questions. Thank you.
No further questions. Thank you.
All right. Witness be excused.
Yes.
Okay, at this time, and you are excused, and thank you for your testimony. That's it. Yeah, we're
Hey,
gonna take
Commissioner.
about a 10-minute break here real quick, because
Okay, now,
we have
last time
some-
we said a 5-minute break. Lasted.
or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you are about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, and now just state your name and position.
Miguel Berrigan, internal organizer for SEIU Local 521 from our Fresno office.
Miguel, how long have you been an internal organizer with SEIU 521?
About 18 years with with 521, I'm sorry. 7-8 years.
And as an internal organizer for the union, do you work with employees at the County of Madera?
Yes, I do.
Can you turn to Union Exhibit 8, which is the Memorandum of Understanding?
Yes.
Okay, are you familiar with this document?
Yes.
Okay, do you work with employees that are covered under this MOU?
Yes.
In addition to, so this document, the MOU says service unit. In addition to the service unit, are there other bargaining units that SEIU 521 represents in the County of Madera?
Yes.
Okay, and what are those?
COMPA, I call it the professional unit, but it's the COMPA unit.
And in addition to COMPA and the service unit, are there other bargaining units that the SEIU 521 represents in the county of Madera?
No.
Can you briefly describe your role, duties, and responsibilities as an internal organizer for SEIU 521?
To organize the membership so they can empower themselves for the rights through the contract. We do a gamut of things, politically get involved, our members, do negotiations, deal with labor management issues, labor relation issues like meeting confers, things of that nature.
What role, if any, do you play in the grievance filing process?
As an internal organizer, my job is to research, kind of see if there's any validity to an issue, help to try to deal with at the lowest common level, and then turn it over to our contract enforcement team.
Are you familiar with the standby pay issue that we've been discussing in this hearing?
Yes.
Can you briefly explain how you first became familiar with this issue? How?
How I believe I was contacted, and please forgive my memory because it's been a couple of years, but someone must have contacted me via email, via phone. I probably reached out to someone in the group and started some type of research to find out what was going on.
And when you say you were contacted by somebody,
Mhm.
do you generally know who that somebody might have been?
Again, it must have been someone from our witnesses. I know I had conversations with them. I'm not sure who exactly was the first individual who contacted me, or if, was it a group who contacted me?
Can you open up Union Exhibit 2 and turn to page 3? And that should be on the bottom corner, the page number.
Yes.
Okay, are you looking at an email from Ashley Diaz dated May 17th, 2023?
Yes.
Okay, and is that your email in the CC line?
Yes.
Okay, and at the time that this email was sent, May 17th, 2023,
Mhm.
had you previously had any discussions regarding the standby pay issue that we're discussing in this hearing?
I'm going to assume that I did. I don't recall exactly, but I might have had conversation with them maybe by this time, maybe a couple days before May. I'm not sure.
Okay, and can you just generally explain what the nature of your conversations with the grievance, Ashley, Jeremy, and Roy would have been before this email was sent?
To research, to discuss the issue, what's going on, who's involved.
So can you explain why a grievance was not immediately filed after the grievance here, Ashley, Jeremy, and Roy reached out to the union?
One, we try to research it, right, to find out what's going on. Two, we try to deal with it at the lowest possible level first to see if it can be remedied.
And when you say lowest level, what does that mean?
Um, I believe we usually try to go with the direct supervisor at first. If there's a conflict or anything like that, we may have to go above that, but we usually try to deal with the most, how would I say, not senior manager that is involved with this.
Okay, and when you say you research, what does that research entail?
Looking at the MOU, discussing it with the individuals, maybe individually, maybe as a group. Again, trying to schedule maybe this informal meeting to have a dialogue with it.
And would you say that this research step is an important step in the grievance process?
Yes.
And why is that?
Um,
You don't want to file something that is not a valid grievance. You want to make sure that it may have some merit. You want to talk to the members. You want to make sure that everything's lined up correctly. And again, it's communication and research to make sure that, they're just not just doing something that's invalid.
So if you can look back at Union Exhibit 2 again, page 3. What was your understanding of why this email was being sent to Ryan Noel?
To try to have a conversation to discuss the issue. And if it could be resolved, great, then maybe there's no other action needed.
Okay, and can you look at still Union Exhibit 2? It's a response from Ryan Noel, and it's cut off, but it's starts at the bottom of page 2 and then the top of page 3. Do you see that response?
Yes.
And were you copied in that response?
Yes.
So did this meeting with Ryan Noel ever occur?
No, if I remember correctly, the only meeting that I had with management or HR is the one that they discussed earlier where Susan Carter and myself, the witnesses were there, and I believe that maybe the steward at the time was Aaron Herring was there, and I forget who else was there, but I think there's a couple of other HR people as well.
Can you turn to Union Exhibit 2, page 1, and this time it's an email from you to Ryan?
Yes.
Okay, can you just briefly look over this email and let me know when you're done?
I'm done.
Okay, can you elaborate on why you're referencing defaulting step 1 of the grievance process?
Yes. So if for some reason you're trying to resolve it at the lowest possible level, which would be the supervisor, and if there's an issue there, they may want to default and move it to the next step or the next level up.
Okay, and in this case, who would have been the next step? Who would have been the person that you would meet at the next step?
I believe it's Chief. I don't want to mispronounce the name.
Okay, is it the person whose name is written here, Chief McComb?
Yes.
And did this meeting with Chief McComb ever happen?
It did. That's the one I had mentioned earlier regarding when we had HR, myself, the witnesses, and our steward, Aaron Herring, there.
Are you familiar with the grievance process timelines in this MOU?
I'd have to read it, but I'm familiar with a bit of it.
Okay, can you turn to Union Exhibit 8? And go to page 13. In the bottom of page 13?
Mhm.
Okay. Are these the relevant grievance procedures that you're familiar with?
Yes, under Article 9, grievance procedure, you have the definition. And then you go into the steps, outlined as step 1, 2, 3, 4, sub-step A and B.
Okay. Are these the steps that you were referencing in your previous testimony?
Yes.
Okay. Can you look at the bottom of page 14? Still and this is section 09.03.00. Do you see that?
Yes.
Okay, there is a reference there in regarding the extension by mutual agreement. Can you elaborate in your experience with the grievance procedure? What is your understanding of what that means?
Yes, let's just say that you want to hold it in advance, a grievance in advance. In other words, let's just say that you're at a certain step and either party needs more time than 10 days. You can mutually agree to say, hey, why don't we give each other 15 days or 20 days or whatever the case may be, so that for whatever reason, they need a little bit more time than 10 days.
Okay, can you turn to Union Exhibit 3 and start at page 3?
Yes.
So here, this is an email from you to Ryan Noel. Can you elaborate to the best of your recollection why you were requesting this informal meeting on June 5th, 2023?
We were, again, the informal meeting, basically trying to deal with this at the lowest common level in hopes of not having to file anything or, try to get it resolved at the lowest level.
And so do these informal meetings occur before a grievance is filed?
Yes.
Can you turn to page 1 of Union Exhibit 3? This is an email from you to Ryan Noel dated June 7, 2023. Do you see that?
Yes.
Okay. At this point, you bolded the text, "We have submitted a group grievance."
Yes.
Can you explain why at this point you proceeded with the actual filing of the grievance?
I believe that we basically weren't able to meet informally, if I remember correctly. And so therefore, if you can't have any type of resolution at the lowest level, then you'd have to file the grievance, if my memory recalls correctly.
I would like to move Union Exhibit 3 into evidence. I don't believe it has been.
Do you have any objections?
No objections. Thank you.
Okay, then we move Union Exhibit 3 into evidence.
Thank you. Miguel, are you aware that some bargaining unit members pay dues to the union?
Yes.
Okay. As a representative of the union, to you, is there any distinction between members who pay dues and those who don't?
We try to represent everyone in our bargaining unit as best to our ability, but there are some that pay union dues and some that don't, but they're within our bargaining unit. And an example of that could be in contract negotiations. We negotiate for all our bargaining unit members, not just those who pay.
Okay, and so to your knowledge, is the fire master mechanic classification within the SEIU 521 service unit?
Yes.
Okay, and is the parts assistant position also within the SEIU 521 bargaining unit?
Yes.
Okay, and is that the case irrespective of whether those individuals pay union dues?
No, they're in our bargaining unit.
And may the union file grievances on behalf of bargaining unit members who do not pay union dues?
I believe so, yes.
Have you ever participated in negotiating the MOU with the County of Madera?
Yes.
Okay. To your knowledge, is the service unit MOU and the professionals unit MOU, are those negotiated together or separately?
They're done
Objection,
together.
relevance. We're starting to get a field of the relevant issue here, that all of the members are part of the service unit. So testimony and any line of questioning related to other units would not be relevant because those individuals, the grievance, are not part of those other units.
That was my only question regarding that other unit.
I'm going to sustain this objection.
Okay, I think the relevance will come up later, so if I can be allowed to ask that one question, then I think the commissioners will see what the relevance is with my other witnesses and with other questions.
Have any objection to that?
Well, if other witnesses are going to be speaking to other units, then that would also be irrelevant. Because it's going into other units. And again, the grievance here are part of a single unit. So I mean, if I'm going to object at the point of, those witnesses coming up and testifying about other units, because again, the county's position is that's not related to this hearing. This hearing is about the service unit, and the grievance are part of that service unit. They're not part of any other unit.
With that said, I'm going to go ahead and sustain his objection.
Okay, I have no further questions for this witness, so all
Okay.
of that objecting was for absolutely nothing. Thank you.
Do you have any cross?
I do. Thank you. Mr. It's Berrigan, is that correct, or Berrigan?
Yes, that's
Okay.
fine.
Okay, I apologize. I believe you testified that the grievance in this matter were part of the unit regardless of whether they were dues paying members. Is that correct?
I'm sorry, just clarify that.
I think you testified that the grievance were part of the unit
Yes,
regardless of whether they paid dues.
yes,
Okay. And so were they subject to the terms of the MOU as well?
yes.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Berrigan, isn't it true that in order for a grievance, or excuse me, strike that,
Mhm.
isn't it true that in order for the grievance process, the grievance adjustment process under the MOU to be started, that there has to be the filing of a written grievance?
I believe that we would want to, before file it, to deal with it at the most informal level, which would be, like an example again, an informal meeting.
Okay. Is that anywhere in the MOU?
I don't know.
Okay. I'd like to have you turn to Union Exhibit 8, page 14.
Yes,
And so there at the top there, it says section 9.02.00 adjustment procedure. Do you see that?
yes,
And do you see the two paragraphs immediately below that before subdivision 1?
yes,
Okay. Can you go ahead and read to yourself that second paragraph?
yes. Yes,
Okay. And does that discuss anywhere an informal resolution prior to the filing of the written grievance?
no,
Okay, thank you. And it in fact states that a written grievance must be filed within 10 working days from the time that the grievant becomes aware or should have become aware of the issue. Isn't that right?
yes.
Thank you. Looking at that same exhibit, do you see anywhere where it discusses providing time to research whether a grievance should be filed before those 10 working days are triggered?
No.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have for now.
I redirect.
None.
Commissioners, Mr. Rios, you have any questions?
Uh, Mr. Barragan?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Um, You said that you meet with individuals and groups to discuss whatever the issue is, right?
Yes, sir.
Now, and if the issue has merit, you follow through on what you have to do,
Yes.
okay? Did you personally meet with Diaz, Switten, and Mr. Monich? Did you meet with them in person?
I don't remember if I met with them in person, but I know I've spoke with them several times.
You spoke with them, but you never met with them.
I don't remember if I met with them in person, but I remember speaking with them several times.
Okay. That's all the question.
Abel?
Yeah, hi, Ms. Berrigan. You had mentioned that part of your process when a matter is first brought to your attention is to bring your concerns to your contract team. Is that what you said?
Once we do research and attempt to do an informal meeting, if there's validity and we need to file a group grievance like this one, then we hand that over for the grievance process through the contract enforcement team, yes.
Okay. Does that contract team advise you on whether or not a grievance should be filed?
I believe they go ahead and file the grievance, if I remember correctly. Yeah, they kind of take from there.
Okay, so the official grievance that was filed dated on Union Exhibit 1 on June 1st, 2023, was that the result of the contracts team's assessment and determination that a grievance was appropriate?
I would have to have the contract enforcement team talk about that, but I would assume yes.
And do you have an approximate date? We have kind of established that somewhere between late April, early May, a conversation this matter was brought to your attention. And at what point did you escalate this to your contract team? Do you have an approximate date?
I don't have an approximate date, but something of this matter, pretty quickly, I would probably talk to them.
Okay. And is it procedurally, do you get a response from them or do they just take over after that?
I usually have a conversation with them to explain what's going on. And then if we have to file a grievance, they kind of run with it. But again, I would have to have our contract team talk about that.
All right. You know, when on Union Exhibit 3, page 3, you reviewed the email, and this is where you were requesting an informal meeting with Ryan Knoll. And you had, under your testimony, you had stated that you were still trying to resolve the issue at the lowest managerial level. Is that correct?
I believe I was trying to get that dealt with at the most informal level possible.
Okay. So we're still trying to do that 4 days after the grievance is officially filed. Is that correct?
You can always pull a grievance if needed. So I'll give you an example. Let's just say that there was a meeting held, just for argument's sake, June 10th, for the grievance, but we were able to resolve it prior to that. You can always pull a grievance. In other words, it goes away basically.
Okay. And you hadn't pulled it?
No.
Okay. And it's a little unclear. We have this meeting that happened with HR, Shop Stewart was there, and dates are kind of in the air. It says May, June. Do you recall that date of that meeting?
I don't remember the date, but I do recall the meeting, who
Okay.
was there,
Do you remember if that email, your email on June 5th to Ryan asking for the informal meeting, was that prior or after that HR meeting?
I don't remember the dates. My assumption it was after, but again, I don't remember the dates.
Okay.
But I believe there was notes taken, and I think maybe HR has probably the date written down somewhere.
All right, I'm good. Thank you. Thank you.
Bill?
I am Bill. I'm trying to figure out from your point of view, in the union,
Mhm.
when the grievance started. What day? Or are we 17th of May, 18th of May, sometime in March?
Right.
April? So when was it?
Well, I would have to look at when the actual grievance was filed, and that would be,
Well, that's what I'm asking.
so I'd have to look at when the grievance was filed. When whatever's date that is on there, that's when the grievance was filed.
Knowing you were going to be testifying today, you didn't look that up?
I have a very bad memory, sir.
And you didn't look it up?
I probably looked it up at around 3 o'clock, but I don't remember the date. I'm assuming, I think it was June 1st.
Okay, but, okay, I'm trying to get a handle on when the event took place that you would grieve. So if you wrote it on June the 1st.
Yeah.
According to this, I mean, when did the event take place that you aggrieved?
I would, if I'm understanding you correctly, what I'm aware of is that there was a grievance filed, and I believe it was June 1st.
Okay. And so the event took place when? That
You
you
mean-
grieved?
I'm misunderstanding.
I'm not good at explaining it.
No,
Commissioner, are you asking about the underlying event of the grievance?
Yes.
Correct. If I may, Bill, I think where you're going is, you have 10 days to file your official grievance, which in this case was dated June 1st, right? I think what my fellow commissioners asking is, at what point should that clock have started? Correct?
Right.
Because a grievance was brought to the attention as kind of a written, it states here, the written grievance must be filed within 10 days, working days from the time the grievant becomes aware or should have become aware of the issue or incident giving rise to the problem. So I guess when did the grievant receive rise to the problem?
I guess well, I'll hear your answer and then I'll.
To answer the commissioner, again, my recollection is trying to do an informal meeting to resolve it, and then turning it over to the contract enforcement when they filed the grievance on June 1st, I think it is.
Okay, I guess where I'm confused is I'm hearing March the 23rd, we were upset and, you know, and all of these dates, at what point they made a phone call in March
I don't, again,
and so my understanding, if I've heard this correctly, is we, the group, somebody made a phone call or email
Right.
to the union and said, we have a concern about this. Okay, at that point, you're now notified there's a concern. A concern, not a complaint, a concern. So that's around the 23rd of March. And then we have,
March, where you,
they had a meeting in March on the 23rd, or March 23, I'm sorry.
I think, yeah. In March, no.
It was Mr. Witten's testimony that March 2023, Miguel is made aware. That's what
And it was the two other grievance testimony that was later in April or May. And so Miguel was not contacted in March.
Oh, okay.
Roy also, okay, but March or April, which is still before May, right?
Yeah. And
So either way, we have a discrepancy there. I think the point is, when was action taken in response, right? That's what you're asking, Bill?
Yeah, I just,
Can you restate that? I'm sorry.
well, I'm just trying to figure out at what point did you become aware that they were unhappy with the county? And
Again, just by hearing the testimony, um, I don't remember exactly what date it was that I was contacted.
April?
I don't know.
I wish I could get away with that with my wife. Okay, so, okay, I would have just assumed you would have double checked your records. Thank you.
Okay, Beverly? Okay, we're gonna beat this horse to death because I want an answer from it myself.
Mhm.
Just because a person has a thought in their head that they have a problem, does that mean that you have to write a grievance at that point?
No, I believe what we tried to do is,
I don't want to hear what you
say that
believe
again.
you try to do.
Okay,
Because a thought came up that we have a problem.
yeah,
Phone call is made.
Yeah.
Is that the day that there has to be a written grievance?
no.
Because how do you resolve anything if you don't talk ahead of time? I'm not sure why the wording in the MOU is the way it is without a specific, a very specific time frame of when that grievance has to be filled out and sent.
Mhm.
So that when, in your mind, should that happen?
In my mind, when should it have happened? It should have happened if we would have had an informal meeting. And if that informal meeting didn't resolve anything, then you would go ahead and file the grievance after that.
The very first one. Assuming that you're talking to the next up supervisor or to
Yes,
follow
yes.
protocol,
If,
at that point, you should have filed a grievance.
if, again, trying to stick to this matter, trying to contact the supervisor. If we were not able to deal directly with the supervisor, then the next step would have been, I believe it's the chief, meet with him informally to try to resolve it. If it's not resolved then you file the grievance.
Okay, so at the time that it was passed off to the chief, instructions were to meet with the chief. Would you have started the grievance after you meet with the chief and nothing is resolved? Or would you start it before meeting with the chief? Based on the
After.
emails.
After, because again, you're trying to meet informally to see if you can resolve it. And then if nothing is resolved, then you would then file the grievance.
This is your interpretation, correct?
Yes.
There was a comment, I believe it was by county, that there are no rules for extending times. And I would ask you to look at Exhibit 8, page 14 at the very bottom. Section 09.03.00. Would you
Yes.
read that for me, please?
09.03.00, sir.
Yes.
All time limits herein stated above may be extended by mutual agreement of the parties involved.
What if there's no mutual agreement?
Then you can extend the timelines.
So then what do you do next?
You, I'll give you an example if I may.
Okay.
Let's just say that you are in the process of trying to resolve this and you have 10 days and you say, hey, for whatever circumstances there are, I may need 12 days or 15 days. And let's just say Human Resources says, we really got to stick to the 10 days. Then you stick to the 10 days. Or vice versa, they say, not a problem, take 12 days, take 15 days. We mutually agree, then we're okay.
What if they don't mutually agree?
Then you stick to the timeline.
But that then requires that a grievance should have been filed. You
You,
can't just say 10 days from the time we start talking. So there had to be some sort of written grievance, is my understanding at what I know now.
if we're trying to do an informal meeting,
I understand that.
right? And they say, let's meet, you meet. If there's no resolution, you file the grievance then. I hope that answers it. I'm not sure.
No,
if-
not
okay.
really. I know what you're trying to do, and that to me is a good way to do things.
Mhm.
But when you have a rule of having to file a grievance within a certain time frame, and even that to me is a little weird, because how do you resolve something with that if you're gonna have a cloud hanging over it with pressure points? I just,
I'm sorry for the confusion, commissioners.
Mr. Berrigan, I have a question. When a situation or complaint is brought to your attention, do you take ownership of the respected union members' complaints?
Yes.
And in this case, when this was first brought to your attention, was it a concern immediately to you, in your opinion?
Again, I would have to have researched it to see the validity of it, but I would treat it like an important matter.
Okay. And during that time, were you aware that the grievance procedures stated that the written grievance must be filed within 10 working days from the time the grievant becomes aware or should have become aware of the issue or incident giving?
Yes, I
rise to the
probably would have looked at our contract, reviewed it, and tried to stick to the timelines.
So knowing that piece is in your procedures here, do you have urgency with your team, whether it be the contract team, as you referred them to, or anybody else, to quickly identify whether or not a grievance needs to be formally filed in preparation of becoming past the 10 days?
Yes, you want to stick to the 10 days.
Okay. Do you recall maybe making a phone call like, hey, where are we at with this?
I'm pretty sure I communicated with our team.
Okay.
I don't remember exactly if we made a call, but I'm pretty sure I would communicate.
And I get, excuse me, I guess that's what has me confused is when you were contacted
Yes.
and it's brought to your attention that there's a problem.
Mhm.
People just don't call the union for a non-issue. And they call and they say there's a problem. It would seem to me that's when the clock starts. And okay, if they call at 4:30 in the afternoon, clock might start the next morning. But it seems to me that's when the clock starts.
Mm.
And you can't tell me
The
when the clock started.
you made a statement right now about when someone calls, right? It's very important to kind of have these conversations and do the research, because what if it's a non-issue?
Of course, I understand that. But there's the 10 days. So you look into it the next morning, the next day, and using your words, paraphrasing your words, you can always pull the grievance. So I get a complaint. I'm a school principal. I get a complaint from something. I start looking at it, and if I find there's nothing to it, I just do away with it. But the clock starts, and so I'm asking you,
Yes.
your valued union people, your union member
Mhm.
calls their union, who's their protection,
Yes.
and says, "I'm having a problem here. I'm
Mhm.
not getting paid fairly."
Right.
That's a serious issue, and to me, the clock starts. And you're saying to me,
Mhm.
I don't even know when. And you knew you were coming here tonight. And
Yeah. I don't know what to tell you, but what I can tell you is this. Again, you'd want to find validity, and you're right, you can pull a grievance like I testified, right? But you don't want to drop an invalid grievance. You want to make sure you at least have conversations with the specifics. And in this case, there's 3 of them.
okay,
Yeah. And I'm sorry if I can't tell the exact date. I'm sorry about that.
okay, I'm just having problems with
Yeah.
somebody calls me and says, "Hey, Bill, I haven't been paid for 3 years for back pay
Right.
for standby pay by my county,
Hmm.
and the MOU says I'm entitled to it." At that moment, I'm looking at my union to say, "We're going to check on this tomorrow."
Sure.
And to my way of thinking, if I'm the union member, that's when the clock started.
If I may, your logic is what it is. I would say this, that again, I'd have to have a conversation, one. Two, even at least try to research what the language is in the contract, right? So that takes time. So you just don't willy-nilly go file a grievance.
I would say while your concern is to not have a willy-nilly grievance, here we are a few years later, and we're consuming every evening of this week and possibly even longer because due diligence efforts weren't taken. And I'm just gonna, I know we have to stay neutral for the remainder of this, but we are appointed by elected officials who were elected by the community members here in Madera County. And the majority of our employees, and which include staff as well, right, are those community members. So, when I hear that, man, we may have, somebody who's not taking action on our employees' concerns, that checks and balance systems that now becomes broken, right? So I think that's where our passion comes from in wanting to identify, man, at what point do we or you take this a little bit, more serious and escalate this in a faster manner? And you saying, I don't remember, or I have a bad memory, might, it doesn't help us with employees who have concerns, who need you to have good memory to file these things on time. So I just wanted to state that I'm done.
Okay, do we have any other questions from the commission? Does that bring up any questions from the council?
Many. Yes.
You have 10 minutes. Well, the two of you have 10 minutes. Or we don't, well, something's going to come up.
Miguel, you were asked by one of the commissioners if you're ever contacted by members about non-issues. How frequently would you say that the union is contacted by bargaining unit members on issues that are not actually grievable under the grievance procedure?
I don't have any data, but I would say that, yeah, that happens.
Does it happen frequently?
I would say yes.
Okay. And does the union file grievances on every single one of those non-issue that
No.
you get contacted about?
No.
And would you say that without doing the research that you're explaining, without doing that research, can you say for certain whether or not the contract was violated as the grievance complained of?
I would have to have done the research to find out if there was a violation.
Okay. So at what point did you, as the union representative, know that the contract was violated in this case with respect to your research process?
I'm guessing when I'm sending the emails out to the supervisors to have an informal meeting to discuss it.
Okay, can you explain again what it means to default on a step in the grievance procedure?
Pertaining to this, if for some reason, say, the supervisor may say, hey, we want to deal with it at the next higher level, right? Let's default to the next higher level. In other words, let's take the supervisor, move him aside, and go ahead and deal with the issue at the next higher level. So you're moving it to the next higher level.
Okay, so if a grievance is defaulted at a certain step, does that mean that it's moving to the next step?
Yes.
Okay. And to your knowledge, was this grievance defaulted at any step in the grievance process?
I believe it was in this aspect of we weren't able to meet with the supervisor. So at that point, we went, I believe, and had the meeting with the chief and HR and everybody else.
Okay. And when a grievance is defaulted and moved up on the steps, does that mean that both parties are collectively moving it up or one party by itself?
That in this scenario, we're working with HR to resolve it at the next level. So again, dealing with this incident, we're not dealing with the supervisor anymore, so we're now moving it to the chief, and we're both working on that.
Can you look again at Union Exhibit 8, page 14? This is the grievance procedure.
Yes.
Okay, can you look at paragraph 1 there? And it references the immediate supervisor.
The number one, correct? That paragraph?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay,
Excuse me, what page?
this is Union Exhibit 8, page 14, the
Okay,
grievance
Thank you.
procedure.
Thank you.
So step 1 references the immediate supervisor, right?
Yes.
Okay. And to your knowledge, did this step 1 meeting happen?
Not with the immediate supervisor.
Okay, so did the grievance default at step 1?
I believe so, because that's when we had to move it up to, again, the chief.
Okay, so what does it mean for it to be defaulted to step 1, in step 1?
In this case, we weren't able to meet with the supervisor, so we had to move it up to meet with the chief.
Okay, so that means the grievance is pushed to the next level.
Yes.
Okay, and here, can you look at paragraph 2?
Yes.
It references the department head.
Yes.
Okay, to your knowledge, in this matter, who is the department head?
I believe the chief.
Okay. And can you look at paragraph 3?
Yes.
And there it references the director of human resources?
Yes.
Okay, and for your understanding, is the director of human resources at the next step in the grievance process?
Yes. So if I'm listening correctly, so step 2 again is a department head. Step 3 is human resources.
Okay, and when you met with Justice, Chief McComb, did you also meet with the director of human resources?
We met with HR. I'm not sure if the director was there because there's been some transitions with the directors.
Okay, so from your understanding, at what step at that point had the grievance defaulted to?
I'm assuming step 3 because we had HR there, we had the chief there, we had our people there, we had our steward there.
Okay, so then what is, per paragraph 4, it references mediation. What is the next step in the grievance process?
Step 4 is basically talking about mediation.
Okay. And then after mediation, what is the next step?
I think you're going to go civil service, correct?
And that's where we're on now. Is that where we are now?
Yes.
Okay, so from your understanding, this grievance defaulted several steps in the grievance procedure per both parties. Is that correct?
Yes.
From your understanding in filing union grievances, in addition to this one, how common is it for steps for a grievance to default at certain steps in the grievance process?
It's not common. Again, I don't have any data, but not many that I've dealt with have defaulted.
So would you say this was an uncommon scenario?
For myself, yes.
No further questions. Thank you.
Counsel?
I will try to make this as brief as possible. I understand we all want to go home. Mr. Berrigan, you just testified that it was your understanding that the grievance defaulted through several steps to reach this point. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Isn't it true that the unions, or excuse me, it's getting a little late for me. Isn't it true that the county's initial response, written response to the written grievance was to deny the grievance, expressly deny the grievance based on untimeliness?
I don't recall, but
Okay, I'd like to, do you have a copy of the county's exhibits in front of you? It should be respondent, County of Madera's exhibit or witness list or something like that.
is under exhibit or?
It is an exhibit. I'm not sure how it's identified on that binder though.
Oh, no, it's okay. I'm looking at tabs that say Madera County Exhibit 1, 4, 5.
Okay, perfect. So I'd like you to go to Exhibit 2. Do you see that document?
Yes, it's stated June 15th.
Okay. And what is the title of that document?
Response to group grievance submitted on behalf of SCMC workers on June 1st, 2023.
Okay. And what is the very last sentence of that first paragraph?
Objection, we have no foundation that this witness has ever seen this document. It's
Sure.
not directed to them.
Sure. So, Mr. Berrigan, who is Aaron Herring?
He used to be one of our stewards.
Okay. And if Mr. Herring received a document, would that then go to the SEIU, SCMC? Is that correct?
Well, SCMC is the bargaining unit.
Okay.
If you're asking to whom this document would have gone to,
Yes.
it could have gone to our contract enforcement. It could have gone to a member resource center. I'm not sure.
Okay. But you don't deny that Mr. Herring was a representative of the service unit.
He was a steward.
Okay. And so, and go ahead and read, or to yourself, go ahead and read the very last sentence of that first paragraph. It's a very short sentence.
I'm sorry, I read the one before.
Oh, okay. Just that very last sentence.
Sure. Yes, I read
Okay.
it.
And isn't it true that that states that the county denies the grievance?
I'm sorry, did you ask me to read the last sentence in the background information?
I asked you to read the last sentence of the first paragraph on that document.
Yes, I read it. Yes, it's basically stating that the county denies the grievance.
Okay. And go ahead and turn to the third page of that document. And do you see the emboldened and underlined text 2 paragraphs down from the top?
Where it states the grievance is untimely?
Yes.
Yes.
So isn't it true then that the service unit was advised by the county in response to the written grievance that the grievance was denied based on its untimeliness?
That's what it states here.
Okay.
The
Thank
title.
you.
Mhm.
Thank you. No further questions.
Want to redirect?
Ask one question just to clarify.
Go ahead.
So can you look, Miguel, at this same document?
Mhm.
There are no page numbers, but this is the third page under the header, "This grievance is untimely."
Yes.
Can you read the second to last sentence under that header, "The grievance is untimely"?
Does it start with however?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and ends with submission?
Oh, yes. However, even assuming that grievance
Yeah,
have,
read it to yourself.
I'm sorry. I've read it.
Okay, so from your understanding, how late, according to the county, did the union file its grievance?
1 day.
Okay. So that means that according to the county, the violation occurred 11 days prior. Is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Berrigan, since we're going back and forth on this, isn't it also true that under grievance is untimely, it discusses how the grievance have known about this issue for 5 years?
Where it says the grievance is untimely.
Yes. Go ahead and read that paragraph.
Yes, it says 5 years ago.
Okay, thank you. No further questions.
Do you have some more?
I'm sorry, just one question.
Okay, go ahead.
I know
We're
it's past
here.
9 o'clock. Thank you. Miguel, to your knowledge, did the union know of the contract violation 5 years prior to the filing of the grievance?
No,
Okay, so when the county is referencing knowledge for 5 years, whose knowledge are they referencing?
the counties.
Okay.
We didn't know.
Okay, thank you.
Well, in addition to that being speculative, because you're assuming what the county knew, where in it does it state that it's the county's knowledge that is being discussed in that document?
I'm assuming that.
Okay. And isn't it true that the MOU states that it is the grievance knowledge of the issue that triggers the 10 days?
Yes.
Okay. And I'd like to refer you to Union Exhibit 1. Oh, are you there? Okay. Appreciate you being fast. If you look at the text of the grievance itself under description of grievance, go ahead and just read the description of who those grievance are.
I'm sorry, you're telling me to look under where it says grievance procedure?
Description of grievance in that document, and then there's the grievance itself.
Grievance.
Actually, just go ahead and read that text. I mean, it's not that much.
Are you talking about the,
Yourself,
which is
where it starts with grievance.
grievance procedure 902, adjustment procedure? Every effort should be made to settle grievance at the lower level.
No, I'm
Well, okay, I'm
sorry,
sorry.
you're looking at a different document. That's my fault. I was moving too quickly. I was referring your attention to Union Exhibit 1.
Union Exhibit 1. Blue tabs? This is the employee grievance form you're looking at?
Yes,
And we're just read where it says description of grievance?
correct. And what is this document?
This is a grievance form.
And what is this specific grievance?
Standby, it says section of contract violation, standby compensation.
Okay, is that the grievance related to this hearing?
Yes.
Okay, and under description of grievance, who are identified as the individual grievance?
Ashley Diaz, Jeremy Wynn, Roy.
Okay, and so then isn't it true that their knowledge under the terms of the MOU is what triggered the 10 working days?
Objection argumentative. If you'd like to make that argument in your closing statement, you can go ahead and do that. But this witness's testimony, one way or another, does not make a difference. You're asking them to draw a legal conclusion.
Okay, I've made my point, so thank you.
Are we finished with this witness? All right. Thank you very much, sir, for your time.
Thank you.
At this time, we'll adjourn till tomorrow. Same place, same time. Different days.
Same back channel. Oh.